This is a production of ITM Media. Good afternoon, race fans, and welcome to Race Day Unhinged, exclusively on the Unhinged Sports Network, whether you're on YouTube or the Unhinged Sports Network itself. I'm Matt Beamer in the ITM Media studio, along with Preston Mood via Zoom. Preston, how's it going, man? You ready for 400 miles today at the Monster Mile?
Oh, I'm so ready. I'm so excited for this. Dover is one of my favorite races to watch during the season.
Yeah, it's definitely on my bucket list, and I'm surprised I didn't make it up there to the Monster Mile while I was stationed in New York, but that's a fault on me. But maybe one day here shortly I'll be able to go up there and see it for yourself, or see it for myself, I should say. But how's everything going? Did you first off, did you enjoy the Xfinity race yesterday? The Xfinity race was awesome.
Yeah, it was really good, actually. I definitely enjoyed it, and I'll even sneak in a little hint there. I'll give you a hint about my fantasy lineup. It does include somebody that did race in the Xfinity series.
I have a feeling who that might be, but we'll get more into that when we come on to the fantasy. Totally different racetrack than we raced at last week at Darlington, where tires are going to be an issue, but not as much of a factor as they were at the old Darlington Raceway. But still, this is a track where you have to be careful, or else it isn't usually one car that's involved in an accident. It's usually 5 or more, or as we saw yesterday in the Xfinity race, 3 with a crazy on top of the car action. Preston, before we get started into anything, what do you have to watch out for? What do the drivers have to watch out for today to survive 400 miles today at Dover?
It's, I think Dover has become one of those tracks where there's multiple grooves, but I mean, it's just, you have to watch out for the wall that comes up at turns off of turn 2 and turn 4. I mean, that wall comes up in a hurry, and if you're in that middle to high groove, you're going to be in trouble. So we'll probably see a lot of guys trying to stick it to that middle or low lane. But I mean, if you're trying to run it wide, you're going to have to be very careful.
And that low lane is known as the Harvick line. Expect him to be a bottom feeder all day. Maybe Kyle Larson up to the top, but he's usually good at that. We'll have to see. Kyle Larson's very good at Dover and has a win there. But a little bit of the track history about the Dover International Raceway. Track opened in 1969, known as the Monster Mile, because it is a very unforgiving track. It's a veteran-leaned track, but we've seen rookies run well there before. One that comes to mind is Jimmie Johnson, who has the most wins at that track at 11. Jimmy's not racing anymore, but however, who's really the new Jimmie Johnson of Dover? We'll cover that more in a second. 1 mile in length, so it's easy to keep track of how many miles there are. 400 laps, 400 miles today at the Monster Mile. 24 degrees in the banking, 9 degrees on the straightaways. It's a very unique track. You don't see a lot of tracks with banking in the straightaways.
No, not at all, but it creates its own unique challenge. And, like I said, Dover is one of I love to watch Dover. I don't have iRacing, but just judging from like playing on the Xbox, it's one of my favorite tracks to just run at. And, it's just, you don't have to go heavy on the brakes. You can roll it into the corner if you have a good enough car. And it's an overall 1 mile concrete track. It's just, you can get anything out of it.
You really could, and it's a lot of fun to watch, like you alluded to many a times, and only wish we could there. But I bet here in the next few years or so, In the Marbles will be up there bringing you all the race coverage. I want to go there. That's definitely on my bucket list. But now we're going to get ready to go into our starting lineup, our top 10 for today's Drydene 400 from the Dover International Raceway. On the pole, you have last week's winner, Martin Trux Jr., alongside his Joe Gibbs Racing teammate, Denny Hamlin. Row 2, a couple Hendrick Chevys, and William Byron and Kyle Larson, 3rd and 4th. Row 3 has Kevin Harvick and another Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota and Kyle Busch. Row 4 has Sapinski Racing car of Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott as Hendrick's Chevy. And rounding out the top 10, Joey Logano and Chris Buescher. Very outstanding top 10. More or less of what you're seeing throughout the course of the year when it comes to the top 10 lineup. You're seeing Hamlin's and Truex's up there a lot. But out of the top 10, who strikes you as interesting and who to watch out for today?
Well, I have 2 guys, and it's going to be just like last week. It's going to be the Truex and Kyle Larson show. Both of those guys run very strong here at Dover. Both have wins at Dover as well. So wouldn't be surprised to see those 2 battling up at the front.
I'm going to agree with you with the Kyle Larson starting fourth today. Average finish of 7.4 and 12 starts there at the Dover International Raceway with one win. But I'm going to disagree with you with Martin Trux Jr. I brought him up earlier in the show. Kevin Harvick, 3 wins at that track with an average finish of 13.2. And this start today for Kevin Harvick is going to be his 41st start at that track. I can't believe it. That is amazing. Wow. 40 starts. Him and Kurt Busch have the top number of starts in the field today. Watch out for both of those actually coming up here. But dark horses, this is a very interesting one because last week I kind of called it in Erik Jones and he didn't really deliver, whether it be just victim of circumstances, but I'm going to go with him today at Dover only because of this. In 8 starts at Dover, average finish of 13. That's among the top 3% that I found today. Erik Jones is going to be my dark horse today. Who's your dark horse?
I'm going to throw him out there. He is going to be in my fantasy lineup in some shape or form, but Josh Berry, who's going to get that first start in that number 77 Spire Motorsports car, filling in for Justin Haley, who is under COVID protocol, but he got a second place finish at the Xfinity Series yesterday, and Josh Berry's making the most out of what he can when he gets it.
He's really making the most out of it, and this isn't an Xfinity Series heavy show, but we're going to talk about Josh Berry here real quick, making his first career Cup start. Huge opportunity for him. He's proven himself in the Xfinity Series as far as part-time, winning a race, and running very consistently in that Junior Motorsports Chevrolet. But how do you think he'll do today? I think he'll be somewhat middle of the pack. I think this is going to be a whole new world for him at the Cup Series, being that it is so competitive. But we'll have to wait and see. I don't think he's going to be, for lack of better words, causing anybody to scratch their heads. I think he's going to keep the fenders on the car. I think he's going to run very consistently and maybe even eke out a top 20. I'd be surprised if he's anywhere but the top 20.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Spire Motorsports, they don't have everything there. They're not like those top competing teams. But Josh Berry, I think there's something special about this guy, and I think he will keep it clean as best as he can today. But I think he'll be pushing as hard as he can as well because he wants to prove to everybody in the top series that he has he's got it.
Yeah, and he is a part-time driver in the Xfinity Series. I'm surprised he's not full-time yet. I'm surprised Junior didn't put him in a full-time ride and make him eligible for the championship. But he did finish second yesterday at the same track. 200 more laps in a totally different race car. We're racing the 770 horsepower package with the low downforce. I think it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. I dare say if it was a 5 low horsepower, high downforce package, he might adapt a little more. These cars are going to be slipping and sliding all day. He's got a couple extra 100 horsepower under those rear wheels as he accelerates.
Yeah, I think we'll see. It's going to be a challenge for sure, an uphill battle. But I think he'll adapt well. I mean, 400 laps. I think he'll use those first 100, 200 laps to kind of feel it out and figure everything out. 400 laps, that's a long race. Yeah, and he does have a one-up on the field. Having run yesterday's race 200 miles already. He's looking to close out the 600-mile deal. I'm actually very impressed by that pick. I'm looking forward to seeing Josh Berry make his first career start. Tune in to us next week for a debate on that because I got a juicy one coming up. And if you listen to our past episodes of In the Marbles, you'll know what it is. But Preston, anything else before we get into our tire strategy, tire fuel strategy, stage breaks, weather, and race picks? No, let's get ahead.
All right. And before we get into that, if you're watching us on YouTube, got a very special clip. Our first In the Marbles hot laps where I take you on the iRacing track at the Dover International Raceway and take you around that 1 mile facility. Bear in mind, I'm not a driver, but check it out. If you're watching it on YouTube, if you're not watching it on YouTube, go check out our YouTube. Same show, same everything except just watching the show. And we'll be right back with our race picks and expectations right after this.
Race Day Unhinged Hot Lap, exclusively on YouTube.
All right, race fans. New feature for Race Day Unhinged exclusively on YouTube, and that is a lap or two around the track the Cup Series is racing at this particular weekend. And this weekend it is Dover, the 1 mile concrete monster mile. Again, disclaimer, not a race car driver. I haven't even driven a race car in my life. This is the closest I'll get, and that is in iRacing. But I'm going to take you around here, see what the drivers are going to experience for 400 miles today at Dover. let's get started. In the Marbles Ford Mustang here, going into turn 3 right now. You want to keep it as low to the bottom as you can. Keep that pedal depressed and careful not to spin out coming off the turn. Going down the front stretch, and again, 9 degrees on the front stretch, 24 in the corner. But you want to stay right here. This track will chew you up and eat you out. They don't call it the Monster Mile for nothing. Coming off of turn 2 down the backstretch. Got a good run here. Not even depressing the gas right now. The tires are fresh, so I can get away with this. Coming off of turn 4 right now, full throttle. And that is a lap around Dover. We're going to try the middle lane right now just to give you guys a quick difference here. Again, tires are fresh. That was a 22.7. Got a little loose there off the corner. Loose is again where the back end of the car doesn't stick. Into turn 3 here. Car doesn't know what it wants to do, but neither does the driver. Coming off of turn 4 here, you got to watch that wall, and whoop, whoop, whoop. That looseness coming off at 22.5. Decent lap around the Dover International Raceway. I guarantee you people on iRacing do it a lot faster, and you got to watch out for that. Whoop, you got to watch out for that inside wall. And that is where they're talking about. That in the Marbles car totally hit. But you know what? That was a lap around the Dover International Raceway. We're going to go ahead and press escape, get out of here. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Folks, we're going to take a quick second here and break from the show and remind everybody out there about In the Marbles online store at Teespring. There you can find all of your In the Marbles gear that you need, such as t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and much more. Show everybody out there, whether it's at the NASCAR races or the local short tracks, that you are a fan and avid listener of In the Marbles. All purchases will help In the Marbles bring you more content in the future. If you just head over to inthemarbles.net under the merch tab, there you will find the link to Teespring, or you can head over to teespring.com/stores/In the Marbles, and there you will find our online store. And during the month of May, if you use code LUGNUT, it will take 20% off your order. So remember, head over to inthemarbles.net under the merch tab. There you will find the link, or teespring.com/stores/In the Marbles. Again, 20% off if you use code LUGNUT for your entire purchase till the end of May. Back here with Race Day Unhinged, exclusively on the Unhinged Sports Network, getting you ready for today's 400-mile race from the Dover International Raceway. I'm Matt Beamer, alongside my partner in crime, the Formula One open-wheel guy of the show, Preston Lude. Preston, we've come to that point in the show where we're talking about the expectations and who our race winner is, but not, you know what? I can't even tell you who it might be. I could tell you, give you an idea who it might be just based on the past few weeks of action on the track. But here's how the stages are going to break down. Stage 1 ends at lap 120. Stage 2 ends at lap 240. And the final stage will go from lap 240 all the way to lap 400, bringing you 400 miles of racing. Do you think stages are going to be able to make a difference, yes or no?
Not really. You know, we're just all used to the stages at this point. It might throw a little bit of wrench in there, but I think the teams have everything down to a T at this point in terms of stages. I don't think they'll really make too much of a difference. I think, if anything, everybody's going to be vying for that last run, I think, 160 lap run to the finish.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're just going to have to wait and see. They have 9 sets of tires on the car for today's race. 1 set on the car at the start and 8 sets in the pits. Do you think it's going to be somewhat like Darlington last week, where they're going to use all sets of tires?
Yeah, I think so. You know, especially when we get late into the race, you know, it's not going to be as hot this time around this weekend. But I mean, late in the race, if we start getting multiple cautions, yeah, I think we'll see all sets of tires possibly used. You know, you want the best grip that you can get, especially if it's coming down to the end. And
we saw with Justin Allgaier, those 2 cars in front of him did not pit at the end of the stage, and he blew right by them. It's going to be somewhat like Darlington in that sense, where fresh tires are king and able to move around the track wherever you want to go. Multi-groove track. Austin Cindric, yesterday's winner, said there's going to be multiple grooves in there. A lot of people are going to move around. You're going to be seeing a lot of moving around throughout the course of the race because of track conditions updating throughout the course of the race, and that weather has a big thing to do with that. Preston, how's the weather look today?
Yeah, so our weather will be it'll be mostly cloudy this afternoon. The high is only calling for around 72 with a 15% chance of rain. So there's a slight chance for a small shower in there, but 72 degrees in a cloudy skies. I mean, it's going to make the track pretty cool for the most part. So we may see some sliding around, but it's not going to be like last week at Darlington where it was really hot, especially in that afternoon.
No, and it's a concrete track, vice an asphalt track. They went over to asphalt, I think, in 1995, or concrete from asphalt in 1995. But it is a very unique track in that sense. It is the concrete jungle right there. The Monster Miles to Monster is a concrete track. And a lot of people, and it does make a difference with tires. I'm not a crew chief, nor am I technically savvy in that. I should have been a little more prepared for this show. But it does make a little bit of a difference. But what's good about the concrete track, you get to see the grooves coming in throughout the course of the run. You get to see the rubber being laid down where people are running well. Again, look for that. If you cut the track in half, lower half to be darkened way faster than the top half. And if you're caught up in the top half, you're going to be hurting.
Absolutely. That's where all the marbles are.
That's right. In the marbles. Don't want to end up there, but you know what? On this show, you do want to be there. It's a great thing for that. Preston, who do you have for today's winner? Who do you have for winning today?
My winner today is the guy that finished second last week that I thought was going to get Truex, but he couldn't get him last week. But I think this week he gets him. Kyle Larson and Hendrick Motorsports are going to get it done today.
And he's won there before. I think it was his last win there before his suspension. That was the last time he won there in the 2019 season.
Yeah.
But I'm going to pump the brakes there on that one. It's not going to be a bow tie going to victory lane, but a blue oval. And that blue oval is going to be occupied by Kevin Harvick. I keep wanting to pick him. I keep liking him throughout the course of the run and throughout the course of the season. He's doing very well with an average finish this season of 9.25. That's among the top in the series. If we were racing regular points and none of this playoff stuff, he'd be really a championship contender right now. However, just based on the rules and everything, he's running everything he needs to do, but he doesn't have that win. Kyle Larson already has that win in Las Vegas. But I think Kevin Harvick gets it done today, and he defeats Miles the Monster.
That's a really good pick.
I think so. I've picked Kevin Harvick the past few weeks, and I don't know if you noticed this, going off on our tangent here. I should have brought this up on the weekly racing podcast. Do you remember how I said every time I wore a Keselowski shirt at the races, he lost or something bad happened to him?
And it happened again last week at Darlington. I didn't even think about that.
And I should have brought that up on our weekly racing podcast. I jinxed Keselowski again. I can't believe I did that. But it's all in good time and fun, man. You have anything else or expectations? What do you expect to see in today's race?
I expect a fairly good race. You know what? I'm going to say maybe 7 cautions altogether. I don't think it'll be a complete crash fest, but if we do get a few cautions, I think it'll be a couple cars that are collected because like you said, Dover is not usually, you don't usually get a single car crash. No. It's going to be usually 1 or 2, 3 people maybe. But I think being out front and clean air will probably be the key to this thing. But, if somebody can stay close to that leader, maybe they'll keep it close when it comes down to those long green flag runs when they have to deal with a lot of lap traffic like we saw last week at Darlington.
I couldn't agree with you more. I expect a fast-paced race. The clean air is going to be king. Like we saw last week, it's going to be the driver to navigate through those lap traffics after the long green flag run that can secure the victory today, whether it be Kevin Harvick or, in your case, Kyle Larson. They're going to have anybody who wants to win has to keep their fenders clean, their nose clean, and be able to navigate through that traffic as the race goes on and the tires get slicker and wearer throughout the course of a run. On your point with cautions, we're gonna expect 3 cautions already. The competition and 2 stage brake cautions. 7, I think, is a good number, but just to spike you, Preston, like I always do on our show, 8. And we're gonna play Price is Right rules. Closest without going over wins. 8 cautions. I'm going to be that guy. But Preston, anything else before we get into our fantasy picks?
No, nothing else.
All right. Well, we're going to get into our fantasy picks, but not before an ad read from Fanatics. And if you're on the Unhinged Sports Network, a few from them. This is Race Day Unhinged, getting you ready for the green flag at Dover today. And we'll be right back after this. Before we wrap up today's show, I wanted to take a moment to remind everybody out there in the Marbles Nation about our partnership with Fanatics. Fanatics is a proud partner of the Unhinged Sports Network, which we here at In the Marbles are the voice of racing. If you head over to inthemarbles.net under the Partners tab, there you will find a link to Fanatics, and it'll take you right to their NASCAR store, where you can find all your favorite drivers' hats, t-shirts, diecast, and more. But you don't have to just stop there. I buy all my Alabama Crimson Tide gear there, and Preston buys all his South Carolina Gamecock gear there as well. All purchases help out the Unhinged Sports Network, bringing you the best sports coverage 24/7 at unhingedsn.com. Make sure to head over to the Unhinged Sports Network to listen to your favorite shows, not just In the Marbles, but all your sports podcast needs, such as football, basketball, hockey, and yes, racing. That's unhingedsn.com. Back here on Race Day Unhinged, exclusively on the Unhinged Sports Network, getting you ready to wrap up for today's race. Make sure to grab a cold Busch beer or a nice cold Coca-Cola and get ready for 400 miles today from the Dover International Raceway. Preston, as we come to that time of the show where it's really hit or miss for me, though I'm doing pretty decent in our fantasy league in the Marbles 2.0. I'm not doing as well as others, and I wish I could be doing better, and I wish I could say I've been hitting the jackpot at DraftKings, but I have not. You would know.
You'll get there.
Well, you would know if I hit the jackpot on DraftKings. You will definitely know that.
Yeah.
Preston, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I can go first.
All right, Preston. Who do you got today in the Marbles 2.0 lineup?
Well, this is going to be a first for me today. I have no Fords in my lineup for fantasy.
That's surprising, man. Fords are running well this season.
This may come back to bite me in the butt, but you know what? We'll just have to wait and see how it plays out today. But my lineup for the fantasy today, I have Kyle Busch in my number 1 spot and Martin Truex in my number 2 spot. I think Joe Gibbs are going to be pretty heavily contested here. I have no Denny Hamlin, though, in my lineup today because I've used him plenty of times this season, and I need to save him a little bit for some later races before the playoffs start.
I don't blame you.
In my number 3 spot, I'm going with a guy that I keep relying on here and there, and I think he's going to finally come through at some point. Tyler Reddick with RCR. He's in my number 3 spot. I'm really banking on him to do something today. And rounding out my 4th and 5th spots are 2 guys from Hendrick Motorsports, and one of them I touched on already. The first one is William Byron. I think him starting in that second row is really going to help. And Kyle Larson, who was a past winner at this track, I think he's going to do well as well. So that's my top 5. And as far as my garage goes, talked about him earlier in the show, Josh Berry.
All right.
Maybe I might have to throw him in there before the end of the stage too, but I'm going to keep him in there just in case. We'll see what happens, but I have a really good feeling about Josh Berry today.
Well, you had a good feeling about Michael McDowell too, and look, he won the Daytona 500. Who do you have for race winner, top Chevy, top Ford, top Toyota, winning team, and winning manufacturer for today's race?
Well, when the winner, we already talked about Kyle Larson. Top Chevy will be Larson as well. My top Ford, I have Joey Logano.
That's a good pick.
And my top Toyota is Martin Trux Jr. Like I said, I think it's going to be Martin Truex and Kyle Larson again near the end of the race today. And as far as manufacturer and team go, manufacturer will be Chevy, and the winning team I think is going to be Hendrick Motorsports, because even if Kyle Larson doesn't get it done, I think William Byron might be near that front as well towards the end of the race.
Man, you're just putting all your eggs in that basket for the bonus picks, and I don't blame you on that. I do the same thing. DraftKings, we're looking into the lobby of the NASCAR 125,000 Chrome Horn 20 entries max. So this might be hit or miss. I mean, it's a $5 per entry thing. So if you're willing to drop $100 or so into this entry, go right ahead. But I doubt you might not want to do that. Me, I want to do that. I want to do that at all. My number 1 driver, and again, it's a $50,000 budget. Number 1 driver coming in at $8,000, Christopher Bell. He's having a very consistent sophomore season. He's not experiencing that traditional sophomore slump that a lot of drivers go through, but Christopher Bell is actually competing well, has a race win at the Daytona Road Course. He's running consistent in that Joe Gibbs Toyota. Average finish of this season, 14.8, but an average finish of Dover over the last couple of years is 24.5, but that was in Levine Family Racing Equipment. This is now full-time Joe Gibbs Racing Equipment with Joe Gibbs Racing backing. Expect him to run up front top 10, maybe a top 5, I would say, but more so top 10, top 15, just to be safe. Number 2, coming in at $9,800, surprisingly at that cap. The driver I picked to win, Kevin Harvick, again, 9.25 average of the season, and at Dover, 13.5. This is his 41st race. Expect him to hug the bottom. Top 5 at the least, I should say, and a win today. Number 3 is going to be coming in at $7,200, and it is my dark horse, Eric Jones. Average finish at Dover, 13th, but an average finish this season of 22.2 in that Richard Petty Chevrolet operation right there. And I'm just going to say it, Preston. I think he's just biding his time in order to come out of his rut. He's running very well compared to everybody's expectation of him coming into the season. Eric Jones knows how to get it done, and I think he might, top 20. I'm going to put him have him finish in the good, solid top 20 today. Number 4 coming in at $6,600, a driver that has impressed me since Daytona, in that number 17 Roush Racing Ford, Chris Buescher. Average finish of the season, 15.8, and at and at Dover, 22.8. I keep thinking about Darlington for some reason, because I think I miss it so much, but that's my number 4 driver, Chris Buescher, coming in at $6,600. Now, my 5th pick and my most expensive pick of the weekend, 3 wins at the track, average finish of 13.8 at Dover, Kyle Busch. I think he hasn't been on any of our radars, and I don't know why he has been mentioned up to this point, but Kyle Busch is my number 5 driver. And again, most expensive pick at $10,000. 3 wins at that track. Running very well this season. Got that monkey off his back when he won that race a few weeks ago. I think he's going to run very consistently here. Expect him in top 5. And my 6th and final pick for today's 400-mile race from the Dover International Raceway, Ryan Blaney, $8,400. Average finish of this season to this point, 13-point run. He's still steadily climbing. A couple weeks ago, it was 13.8. Last week, it was 13.6. Now it's 13.1. His consistency's building. He might not be winning all the time, finishing in the top 5, but he's running consistently better every week. Average finish at Dover, 19.6. And I'm going to go back and listen to this, and if anybody could tell me how many times I said Darlington throughout that, you might get a free In the Marbles t-shirt. I don't know, because I'm sure I said it a few times. You didn't catch me on it, but I'm sure I did, because I caught myself once.
That's okay. We're just still so pumped from last week.
I really am. That was so much fun.
Nice to be at a racetrack for once,
It really was. It was so much fun. But Preston, thanks for doing the show via Zoom. It was a short episode, but knowing Jim on the Unhinged Sports Network, you'll get to hear everything again right after this episode's done. And if you're on YouTube, hope you enjoyed that Race Day Unhinged Hot Lap. It's a new segment. We'll build on it, and we'll definitely have fun with it. We might do some Formula One in there from time to time if it allows us. We'll figure that out when we get there. But Preston, anything else before we wrap it up today?
Nope. I'm just excited to watch another race from Dover. Dover Downs.
Yep,
Monster Mile.
Dover Downs. Talk about throwback. That was a throwback right there. Dover Downs. Well, Preston, if you have nothing else, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I'd like to thank everybody so much for tuning into us today on Race Day Unhinged, getting you ready for the 400-mile race at Dover. Make sure to go to InTheMarblesTrack.net to sign up and check out all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And that's your one-stop shop for everything, InTheMarbles.net. For Preston Lude, I'm Matt Beamer. Thank you so much for listening. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week from the rights and lefts at Circuit of the Americas. Have a good week.